When I first saw this thumbnail on my recommended, I quickly suppressed the urge to click it, to go about what I was doing. Then saw it again. I didn't want to give attention to something that already has enough attention. While there's a literal war going on, children and families being harmed, on the other hand, a greater atrocity of a genocide of billions of lives somehow happening in this century, in this civilized society. Look it up. An atrocity at such a level being ignored and people being caught up in pageantry is only possible in a mindless public. As if great atrocities are behind us, as if none of that is going on around us. The disregard people have to just go about their lives and even throw up a big fat party. Who would do that? If there was a death, some shooting in your area, and people are in need of help, you wouldn't be throwing some celebration in your backyard or something like that, as Russell Brand said. But this was all over the place. It has invaded everything I look at. Everyone I talk to is doing, have you seen that? Have you seen? And when I saw it, initially, I dismissed it as nature. But it was clear how ridiculous it was that someone raised his hand because someone said something. But I didn't want to go behind him too much after he's faced a backlash. We mess up. We all mess up. Whatever came over him, let's just put that behind us. More importantly, because he apologized. Now, this is a little tricky because had society been another way, he wouldn't have. There's a lot of social pressure that made him do so. If society would have swayed a different way, as it initially did, if you remember, he would have felt the opposite. He would have felt righteous in what he did.
I want to apologize to the Academy. I want to apologize to all my fellow nominees.
Chris, just say Chris. Come on, Fresh Prince, say Chris. The punch was too much, mate. Make amends. Save your career as well. Say Chris. What? Guy, he's doing that thing, with that tiresome thing of never apologising, you know? Never apologise. Continue to act like a 3-year-old. Never admit you did anything wrong. Justified violence. Never apologise to the people or person you should apologise to. Fuck me.
But anyway, later he apologised, and his actions afterwards may reflect that he regrets it. But the point of this video is not that, but to address two parties. One, comedians, and two, the public. So the first one. The bigger issue started to emerge when people thought that an apology should come from Chris. And this happened at the very initial stages, where people were still supportive of that slap, if you remember, and cornered Chris. Everyone was against him. One guy who's always been fake even implied him to as being the devil. But no, Chris, even the late great Norm MacDonald made this mistake of apologizing recently for some word. The day you censor expression, especially performance, that society has gone into a dangerous level of censorship. Sadly, it's already happening. The breadth that you can explore and discuss is getting ever so narrow, with someone getting butthurt about something. And comedians are already a dying breed, real comedians. And many coming up now being weak and afraid, making jokes about, teacups. So when people expected him to be the one to apologize, it started to tread towards an unsafe area. If society was to tread a little bit more towards that direction, we would be having a very different conversation today. Where the cancel culture has got Chris Rock. What it would do to the future of comedy and therefore expression, freedom of what people could say without being shunned. There's just one person who should have apologized, and that's it. And to Chris, to any comedian and anyone out there, do not buy into this idea that there are lines that shouldn't be crossed. in expressing yourself. The performer has to deal with the risk of bombing. That's enough pain for a performer. And the other idea that some things can only be said by some people, a most damaging idea, that someone deserves some status only if they're born to it, that they have the blood for it. That primitive idea. So do not buy into that idea that there are something that can't be joked about. But that is until someone makes a joke about it. Until there's a comedian who's clever enough that can make a joke about it. There are comedians who've joked about 9/11, the Holocaust. There are some who, even maliciously, they don't come from a good place, ridicule the abuse and exploitation of animals. Even when it's malicious, even when it doesn't come from a good place, it has been allowed. But you don't go around banning expression. It's like banning movies. It's like banning a book. This idea has been propagated by a part of the public that's not sophisticated enough to identify what comedy is. By not sophisticated enough, I mean really dim. Maybe it's the public speaking aspect of it that makes them think like it's some rally and not a performance to get a laugh. So as an icon of comedy that so many comedians look up to, do not get fazed by this overly sensitive culture. This overly sensitive culture is not a genuine one. They're not receptive to real issues. They just pretend to be sensitive to what's easy for them to tweet about. When it's something really serious, that really needs their support, that they'd have to take action for, they pretend like it doesn't exist. The other point of this video, the public who applauded this. Before getting into that, from the other side of the matter, those who said that he shouldn't have been given the win for the category. That's the other extreme of it. That's a whole other thing. You shouldn't be cancelling people like that. That isn't good either. His work is unrelated. Denying a thing someone has worked for and earned, it's not good. That's irrelevant to this. But there should have been something rather than carrying on as usual. Being denied the stage after what he did, maybe. Or maybe let him have that rare moment, as he'll face the consequences afterwards anyway. But what should not have happened is that disgraceful act being cheered, him being paraded around like a hero for humiliating a peer. It wasn't a humiliation for the person who got slapped. Not at all. Just like a rabid dog biting a leg. But that act in front of millions, being done to such an esteemed comedian, such an iconic comedian, it's such a disgrace how the crowd reacted to that. Are people so primitive to cheer for savagery? Like it's a freaking coliseum. And for other celebrities to console the attacker? But the person who got attacked? On the crowd's end, there are two things that would have been acceptable there. Either silence or booing. The fact that it meant the complete opposite and cheered for that. Applauding and encouraging such behavior. Making that look good. There are levels to freedoms. The freedom to be verbal trumps the freedom to get physical. They're in two different realms. Why? Because in simple terms, people would rather be called certain things than be physically attacked. That is why this is important. You should be able to speak freely without having someone getting physical with you about it. Do not be physically threatened. Whether it's a government that doesn't like what you say, whether it's a monarch, a corporation, some powerful person, some celebrity, whether it's any member of the public, an average person or someone who's weak and vulnerable. They don't have the right to raise their hand for some word noises someone else made. It makes it even more unjustified that it's a performance, even more unjustified that it's comedy, even more unjustified that he's coming from a good place. There's no malicious intentions. It's not related to that whatever condition. It has nothing to do with that. The problem is not with the person who made a joke. As one of my commenters said, if you're so spoiled to think that you cannot be joked about, You should be able to take any criticism, any insult off the bat, even serious ones. Now, if it's a joke and a light-hearted one, with a different context. On a side note, I remember maybe after Hancock, long ago, seeing a picture of Will Smith. I remember this image from maybe a premiere. He was this iconic actor, starry-eyed, and a part of that appeal towards that persona is the mystery. And lately, there's been a little too much, publishing his everyday life with the current nature of social media that reduces that effect. I hope that he returns to that previous state. I hope he returns in a better state. This person that everyone loved. It'll be sad to see that this is how it ends. These are two people I've loved since childhood. And I hope that the public doesn't act like the cancelling hate mob of today, and instead can put this behind and be more welcoming.